Hi, everyone. Nice to see you today. Thanks for joining us. As you can tell, we're all very passionate and excited about talking about our tree conservation efforts and the longstanding partnership between the Forest Service and BGCI and the Morton Arboretum. We've been working with the Morton Arboretum for maybe around 20 years on tree conservation specifically. So we've come a long way in that time, and we're really at an exciting point where I think we're at the point of scaling up our efforts to make global and regional impacts, and we're excited to talk about it today here. I'm going to talk about some of the tools we've built to support some of the efforts around the Global Conservation Consortium and tree conservation prioritization, as well as some connections with what Sean just mentioned with the tree genetic diversity. So I'm with the U.S. office of BGCI. Thank you, Sylvia. And BGCI, Botanic Gardens Conservation International, is a global network of botanic gardens, and we work and communicate with over 3,400 botanic gardens worldwide that employ around 60,000 experts. And that includes lots of different types of organizations like Arboretum, which are very similar to botanic gardens, just for those who aren't familiar with our field, as well as zoos, even parks and cemeteries, and lots of other types of organizations that manage permanent plant collections that are documented and often have a plant conservation connection. Next slide, please. So as mentioned earlier, Botanic Gardens and our group of organizations that we claim they have a very unique skill set that brings a really nice combination to support long-term plant conservation, which is really important. And we're really happy that several partners within the Forest Service collaborate with many botanic gardens and the organizations on the talk today as well. And we are just thrilled with the natural overlap that we've already identified and work under. Next slide, please. Sorry, next slide. Thanks. In celebrating the beauty and importance of plants and sorry, previous slide. It just wasn't going forward on my screen. Sorry. That's the one. Thank you. So botanic gardens celebrate the beauty and importance of plants and biodiversity. And collectively around the world, gardens engage about 1 billion people a year through their inspiring landscapes, cultural and educational events, training programs, and also as influencers online and on the ground as they talk about the world around us. So it's a really powerful voice for threatened species and plant conservation. Next slide, please. Botanic gardens also have the facilities and expertise to grow, document, and study the world's plants. And this includes living plants as well as seeds in seed banks and tissue culture and cryopreserved collections. And we now know that gardens around the world collectively maintain about 1/3 of all known plant diversity, and that includes at least 40% of known threatened species. Next slide. And BGCI sets up a wide range of programs that are organized under this sort of paradigm of prioritization on the left, facilitation, and then action on the far right. And I spend a lot of my time working on the data tools that are sort of stacked there: garden search, plant search, threat search, and global tree search there. But we also tie all of these programs really into seamless work streams. So a lot of these prioritization tools facilitate say, the Global Conservation Consortia, which we already heard about. So that's a nice example of how we're integrating all of our efforts to focus it on the species and regions that need it the most. Next slide, please. And you have heard about the State of the World Trees. We used all of our suite of programs and tools to complete this assessment and support it. And you can find it on our website at bgci.org to see the full report if you'd like to see it. Next slide. And I've got another example here of how we combined our resources and also reached out to the Botanic Garden community for case studies and best practices around urban greening and urban biodiversity preservation. And we have a series of technical reviews that we take a deep dive in a certain topic, and you can find those also at our website. But this one might be of particular interest for folks. Next slide, please. What I'm here to talk to you about is something I'm very excited about. I've been working toward this for over 10 years, almost 15, I guess, if I'm counting. And it's really focused around our plant search and garden search data tools. And these two online tools are free for botanic gardens and similar organizations to use. It's open to the public to do any type of querying to these data tools, databases. But we do offer login capability and data contributions and data sharing capabilities through these tools. Plant Search contains over 1 million records of collections from around over 1,000 institutions worldwide. And then we tie very closely to Plant Search Garden Search, and that reports features, facilities, and programs at around 3,500 institutions worldwide. And we use that to track ex situ collections coverage. And you can see some of the assessments we've done through the last several years that are looking at how many threatened taxa are being preserved in that safety net of ex situ cultivation in botanic gardens throughout the world. And you can see even at the global level, we've seen positive progress, and we also have seen positive progress at different regional levels as well. So we're quite thrilled with this capability in particular. Next slide. I'm happy to say this past year, I reached a career milestone where we actually did successfully relaunch both Garden Search and Plant Search. So you can go online to see the gardens that we have listed, over around 3,500. You can see almost 1,000 gardens listed in the US, and about 50 fields that characterize each garden and their capabilities and staff contacts and facilities at their gardens, as well as their conservation programs and other types of programs that go on at that individual site. So we're quite proud about this, and we're working this year to work on engagement and updating all of the data by all gardens around the world. Next slide, please. So Plant Search was most recently relaunched just a couple months ago, and we're really happy with it as well. A number of partners listed here have come together to help us relaunch and rebuild both of these tools. And here's an example, just looking at juglans and the number of ex situ sites that report each species. So gardens log in, they report what their collections hold, what collections they maintain, and then we can aggregate all of that information so we know which species are in collections and which ones are not. That's the short way to describe it. And like I said earlier, we've got material exchange capabilities behind the scenes through login and information exchange. So I'm really happy about what is coming down now, which is building and expanding our plant search capabilities. And it really gets to some of these questions here about when we're thinking about meta collections, which plants are high priority for crossing, um, how stable are our ex situ populations, um, in terms of demographics as well as genetics, and then which plants might we be missing, as Sean was alluding to there, and backing up across institutions. So some of these are really important questions that the Botanic Garden world had been really grappling with for almost 50 years. So we're at a really amazing point with all of these amazing US Botanic Garden partners that have stepped forward, in actually getting answers to these questions at a broad scale. So we're really excited. Next slide. And here's a quick look at the accession level where you can enter um, wild collection information of a certain taxon within our pedigree system. Next slide. As well as the pedigree level, the plant level data around the sorry, there's a thing missing, I think, but it's okay. Around the health of individual plants at an individual site, and say if they're reproductively mature, um, if they've ever been noted to be flowering or fruiting in the past in that collection, so we know potentially which ones we can cross. So this is really exciting, and we're just on the verge of launching this publicly. We're onboarding about 75,000 records that we've gathered across Botanic Gardens currently, and we'll be launching that this publicly quite soon. Next slide. And this is a look just to visualize kind of what we're aiming for. This is sort of the model we wanted to emulate through the pedigree functionality, which is just tracking lineages through time and maternal and paternal lines. So knowing who the parents are, and then which ones are still alive to be managed for crossing and genetic diversity purposes, and research, and on and on. So knowing which ones are alive and which ones have died through time, and to be able to utilize that for meta collection management. I think that might be my last slide. Yes, it is. And thank you so much for your time. I'll turn it over back to Sylvia, I believe.